It is Rhema coming up to 11. You're with Tom and Kat on the Days show. And earlier, Kat, I was talking about a conversation I had with my eldest daughter, trying to explain that when my wife and I got married, we didn't know where we'd be at nearly 20 years later, living where we are with the kids and the family that we had. And I was just trying to explain that concept that we change as we grow and develop, and perhaps touching on this a little bit this morning, although looking at myth busting our marriages with another myth this morning with Wynyard Jacobs from FamilyLife New Zealand.
Oh, good morning, Wynyard. Great to have you with us today.
Good morning.
Kia ora. Good morning, Kat. Good morning, Tom.
Now,
Always great to be on the show.
I understand great marriages don't just happen. They actually take a bit of work. And I know that there are a few misconceptions around this. You know, we've talked about some other misconceptions that, you know, it's 50-50. So if you each give the same amount of effort and work, that you absolutely can make it work if you put that work in. But today we're looking at a different myth. We're looking at the idea that we will just naturally grow closer together over time. But that's not the case.
Well, that's right. We would love for that to be the case, Kat. But, I think in essence, when we fall in love, there's this natural tendency, things grow, things happen quite organically. But then actually over time, as we get used to one another, what we thought will continue to grow and strengthen, our love for each other, actually goes in somewhat of the opposite direction. That's not because we wanted to, but that's just because I guess marriage has been designed by God as a representation of, himself and the church. And if you think about it, there are actually things opposing this marriage oneness. There are actually things opposing us. But I love the saying, someone said it once, life wouldn't be so hard if we didn't expect it to be so easy. And I think it's in the difficult moments, if we haven't intentionally grown our relationship, we've drifted apart, and those difficult moments actually come up as a stumbling block to our marriage.
Just before we get to the next point around this, because I'd love to explore, the examples around life wouldn't be so hard if we didn't expect it to be so easy. But one thing that comes to mind is the fact that you mentioned, often when we fall in love with our spouse, there are things that are really different about our spouse that we're like, oh, I really love the fact that he's so into, fishing, and that's something that I don't really care about, but I love his passion for it. And then you see sort of 15, 20 years down the track that all he wants to do on the weekends is go fishing, and you'd rather have him at home having a cup of tea with you. And so that thing that initially attracted you to that person has now sort of started to really grind your gears a bit. I mean, do you think that this is more common than not?
Oh, look, absolutely. And the thing is, life happens, okay? Great marriages don't just happen, but life happens. And, as you can see, you're being introduced to my real family life this morning, because our Ray is for a 3-day women's retreat. And so I get to be, daddy daycare for a few days. And so I've got a wee Gabriella, which was supposed to be asleep by now, but for some reason that didn't manage. So she's joining us on air today. But, that's the thing with marriages. When we realize there's going to be a juggle, there's going to be things that bring up challenges. And we're not, surprised when that happens. We actually say, okay, how are we going to use these opportunities to move us closer together? Okay, so just a quick question for you, Kat or Tom. Let's go, Tom. Who does the dishes in your home?
To be fair, more predominantly me, and me sort of trying to encourage the kids to perhaps take part.
Okay. So let's go with you. So what would happen if you don't fulfill that duty for a few days?
Well, look, I think it's for me, it's realizing that it's a big part of what I do in marriage is that a big part of my wife, her love language being acts of service. So I kind of think, well, she's had an opportunity to be at home with the family, and this is the part that I play that allows her to be able to fulfill her role in the home, and it's it's an expression of love.
I love it. I love it. That's the perfect team player. Identity we want to take on. So that's contributing to a great relationship. But let's go, for example, if you didn't fulfill your role for a few days, what would happen?
Well, the frustration would increase, wouldn't it? And I think in all of these situations, it would probably simmer under the surface. And then I wonder if it would become a little bit like the old analogy of the stone in the shoe. And then it
Yep.
becomes, are you leading me towards that fact that these can become things that that cause us to drift apart?
Well, I love it that you're going deep today, Tom, but the simple answer I was looking for is you'll have a kitchen sink full of dirty dishes.
Yes, that's
Yes, roger that. Roger that.
So I mean, all those things you said are so true. You know, we need to play our role, but think about marriage as our dishes become dirty because we use them, right? And we're not frustrated when our dishes are dirty. We just know that's something to do. It's clean the dishes, and it's probably similar in our marriage. You know, as we go on, the whole moment, the whole movement, the whole process of growing in oneness and being married means that there will be dirty dishes that will need some cleaning. And if we don't pay attention to that, they won't naturally clean themselves.
That's so
proverbially
true.
speaking.
So when it comes to practical steps for growing closer together and not allowing those things like dirty dishes to pile up, what can we be doing?
Well, in sticking with the dishes analogy, I want to take this one step further. You know, when was the last time you had a kitchen sink full of dishes? You know, I don't have to say, give us any revealing answers there. But I think we've all been there. You know, you just leave it a bit too long and before you know, it's overwhelming. You know, if you try and wash the dishes with a whole sink full of dirty dishes, it's actually really hard to do. So
It is. Yeah.
practically, you want to take all the dishes out, clear some space, and do one at a time. The problem in marriage is we often try and clean all our dirty dishes at once. And, my encouragement to couples would be take it one dish at a time and realize that you will naturally drift apart, but with good intention and some right steps, you can grow closer together.
Mm. Well, you talked about me going deep, but what a place that comes to there, the one dish at a time. Yeah. All right. So as we look at myths in marriage, and today looking at that we will naturally grow closer together, but talking about the work and the impact that has in our marriage and relationships. Thanks for joining us once again, Wynyard Jacobs from Family Life New Zealand. And look, if you would like to find out more and access the resources that Family Life has, head along to their website, familylife.com.